to Finance Files, a podcast hosted by best friends Whitney Coford and Brittany Carter with occasional appearances from my dad, Greg Coford.
We talk about all things finance, including investing, trading, economics, capital markets, and business management. Learn the investor mindset with us.
Disclaimer, this is not investment advice. Take everything with a grain of salt, and your first lesson in investing is always do your own research.
We're your hosts. I'm Britt.
I'm Whit.
Today for Think Like an Investor Thursday, we are going to be talking about how you want to think about budgeting within your investor mindset. And so one of the big things is when people are thinking about investing and budgeting is, do I want to just allocate a bunch at the end? Do I want to be proportioning out a different amount each month? And I think there's this whole idea that people will time the market. And I remember I've heard like quite a few, there's actually like a book about it, how you really can't time the market, but found a really great example from Charles Schwab. So basically what Charles Schwab did is they looked back at the past 20 years in the market and they made up 5 kind of like fake people scenarios, right? So you have,
this is like a backwards looking thought experiment, basically.
Exactly. So they took kind of like the 5 ways that people approach investing in the market and scenario planned out, hey, what would have happened if they had followed this starting back 20 years, right? So they had Peter Perfect, and as we all know, no one is perfect, but in this scenario, Peter is perfect and times when he puts his money in perfectly, right? So he's always putting the money in at the lowest closing level for the S&P 500 so that he's going to see the highest incremental gain, right? So that's Peter Perfect. And then we have Ashley Action. I just love their names. I think they're so fun. Ashley Action, just every year, once she received her cash, she invested it. So it's $2,000 at the beginning of the year. She just said, hey, I'm just going to put $2,000 in at the first trading day of the year. I'm not going to try and time it with the market, just putting it all in right away. Matthew Monthly divided his annual $2,000 allotment into 12 equal portions. So you probably already do this to some degree with your 401k, right? You're putting in a different amount each month. And it's kind of like spread out of like, this is my annual goal for investing. So I think Matthew Monthly is probably the one that's like most closely related to most people. And then we had Rosie Rotten. So Rosie Rotten had just really bad luck, invested her $2,000 each year at the market's peak. So absolute worst time to purchase the stock. She's paying the premium for that year. And then the Larry Linger, love that, Larry Linger left his money in cash investments. So he just never actually invested in stocks at all. He was convinced there was always going to be some sort of lower stock price. I think too, they talk about Larry Linger where he's trying to time it, but I think there's probably more it's like Wanda Warriors where they're worried about losing their money. or where like I think that that's what I've heard a lot. It's like people get scared by investing and they just don't put any money in at all. Which isn't really in this, but basically for all intents and purposes, Larry Linger is also Wanda Warrior. Sorry, Charles Schwab, I'm taking some creative riffs off of your study. So basically
So who won?
Who won? Well, let's be honest. I think we all know who won. Peter Perfect.
Oh, well.
Because he put his money in perfectly. But the surprising part is how much did he win by? So how much do you think he did performance-wise versus the others that put their money in?
I mean, based on the fact that you said it's surprising, I'm going to say not very much. 5%.
Yeah, I'm looking and it looks like it was a 7, like almost 8% difference.
Okay.
Which
That's
like
close.
isn't nothing. But you think about like 160, investing immediately is the best, right? Like if you get that money up front, if you put it all up front and just let it be in the market for longer, that is with the assumption, like, I'm sorry, no one's timing the market. Like perfect, Peter Perfect is impossible. Peter Perfect doesn't exist. Peter Perfect is Peter Pan. I wonder if they did that on purpose. He doesn't exist. Sorry, kids. No one's timing the market. So if you get a big chunk of money, if you can put it in immediately, that is the best scenario. But I obviously, when we were talking about budgeting, you do need money to live, right? So even if you can do the like monthly amount, that is still really helpful. So the dollar cost averaging approach still got them to third place, where they were still earning a decent amount of money by just putting in that money every month. And even the investor that did bad timing, worst timing possible, she still made like 141K, whereas the investor that just stayed in cash only made 63K. So I think though that's the number you should really be looking at, is like even if you have the worst timing ever for the market and you're like, why did I put money in right now? Like the numbers, they've backtracked the numbers clearly show that you should just be putting money in and putting it in as early as you can.
Yeah, it's a long-term play. Yeah, Greg's advice is always when people ask him about investing, his entertaining slash advice is basically that whatever, like, pick an amount of what you're going to invest every month. So let's say it's $100 that you're going to invest into your 401k. And then basically what ends up happening is because you picked a fixed amount, when the market is up, you end up buying less. And when the market is down, you end up buying more. So by fixing the amount that you're investing every month, you end up sort of timing it, because you're buying less when it's expensive and you're buying more when it's cheap. So that's the only way that you can quote unquote time the market, is just pick a fixed amount. And then, when you're able to, if you can increase that amount as your salary grows or as your income shifts, then, over time you're investing more and more and more. So that's the goal. But yeah, I think that the point is, the longer you invest, so the younger you start, the better off you'll be in the long run,
Yep, and just
regardless of which tactic you take.
for sure, definitely. And I think the biggest thing is just like when we talk about, I think like an investor, yeah, figure out what that amount is, and just we talked about this before, automate it. Automation is key. Like just don't even see the money, just like let it go into the retirement account and do its thing. And don't try to time the market. Don't try to get all creative with how you structure everything. But I think too, what was kind of interesting is like putting it in earlier. Like if you do have an income that is a little more flexible, or maybe you're like, hey, I'm gonna put my bonus, I'm gonna actually use all my bonus to put it in the market now at the beginning of the year, then maybe you're a little more like, rather than spending that bonus right away, maybe you use that all towards your investment, and you can towards like your 401k or whatever, and then lighten up on these other months, because you're seeing the earlier you put it in, the better, right? But regardless, yeah, automate. And yeah, I agree. Set a target. We already talked about this with retirement. Like figure out what you need to retire, figure out what your goals are, and work backwards from that, and just automate and throw it in there as soon as possible.
Sorry, kids. No magic tricks. No secret sauce. It's just put your money into investing and savings and wait. But it'll pay off. All right. Well, join us tomorrow for Fundamental Fridays, where we will go through an exercise of actually building a budget. Thanks for joining us on Finance Files.